on the march. The empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Did you know that only 6 corporations control 90% of what millions of Americans see, hear, and read every single day? It's the illusion of choice. Think about it. The mainstream media is owned by only a handful of megacorporations with vested interests. But on the other hand, the internet is an interconnected network of billions of sources. So you can research information for yourself from multiple sources, or you can blindly accept what you hear or read in the mainstream media, never questioning what you are being told. This gives you a false sense of reality. I mean, do you actually know what you think you know? Or have you been programmed to accept someone else's version of events? Think about it. This is Darren McBreen, and I want you to break the matrix at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv and listen to The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on your mind.
What lies at the heart of InfoWars and everything we do? At the core is fellow human beings of every race, color, and creed across the United States and the planet that believe in personal liberty. And it's people like you that have promoted the radio broadcast to their friends and family. It's people like you that have bought the high-quality products at InfoWarsStore.com that have made everything we do possible. And that's why I want to salute you. You have helped us build this operation. You don't stand beside us or behind us or even in front of us. You stand at the heart of InfoWars. That's why in the month of April, we're offering some of the biggest specials yet to introduce listeners to these high-quality nutraceuticals at InfoWarsLife.com. 50% off high-quality colloidal silver bullet. Buy 2 X2 nascent iodines. Get 1 fluoride shield absolutely free and free shipping. 50% off silver bullet. Free shipping. Free bottles of fluoride shield detoxer. Find the specials at InfoWarsLife.com. Introducing Secret 12, the new InfoWars Life vitamin B12 formulation. Secret 12 is a binary of nutramedical-grade, bioavailable coenzyme forms of B12, methylcobalamin, the same kind used in B12 injections, and adenosylcobalamin. Secret 12 is simply taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Secure your revolutionary Secret 12 formula right now at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139. Alex Jones here. For the last 2 years, I've been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to design a nutraceutical formulation that has truly life-changing health benefits. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. Visit InfoWarsLife.com or call 1-888-253-3139. That's InfoWarsLife.com.
From Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host today. We're taking callers, and just want to give you an update on that last segment. We had a caller, Aaron, who called in, trolling us, telling us that he thought that this story about the high heels was an April Fool's joke. No, we checked our sources. We talked to Paul Joseph Watson. Paul is a very experienced reporter. He knows to check his sources. He doesn't get punked by April Fool's jokes. This was a local newscast. You guys have that pulled up as well? Okay.
You don't have the newscast?
You don't have
a story that happened at an army base in Germany in 2011 where they did the same thing.
Okay. All right. In 2011. We've had multiple reports of this. Look, there's an agenda out there. We all know what that agenda is. There's an agenda of feminism. There's an agenda of transsexuals, if you want to put it that way as well. You see that a lot in the news right now. There's also an agenda to try to troll and discredit us. So there you go, Aaron. If you want to take a look at those newscasts, you can find that right there. Let's go to Brent in Texas. Brent, you want to talk about Jade Helm? Go ahead.
Hey, David, thank you for taking my call. I'm really a fan of your work. The reason I'm calling is I wanted to draw attention to Jade Helm, if possible. I've done a little bit of research, and my wife actually had me do a search for FEMA coffins recently, and this is how I stumbled across the information. But what I've run into is allegedly JADEHELM is an acronym for the Joint Assistant for Deployment and Execution, and HELM is Homeland Eradication of Local Militias. Now, if you do a search,
now where did you find that? Because we're just kind of talking about sources here. What's your source for that information?
You could look up Department of Secretary document 7277, and also there is another document that's associated with that. I'm at work now, and I don't have access to my my notes on this, but if you do a search for Homeland Eradication of Local Militias, it will pull up the videos discussing this, and I just wanted to bring that to InfoWarrior's attention because I know y'all will do a much better job researching it than I'm able to do.
All right, we'll look that up. I appreciate it. Yeah, one of the things we have to be careful about with JADEHELM, and we're now seeing a pushback in the mainstream media about this in terms of talking about this. I believe that it is an exercise. We've seen that they've got military bases where they have carved out subsectors of that, like the one at AP Hill that Joe Biggs and I walked through about a year ago. We know what they're preparing for. We've seen their scenarios. Whether this is going to be the one that goes live, we don't know. I think probably at this point, I would be surprised if it did, frankly. We need to always be alert and aware as to what our government is doing, but we know the scenarios that they're training for. That's the key thing. We know that our government perceives the citizens who have guns, they perceive veterans, they perceive Christians as the biggest threat to them, a far bigger threat than terrorists are to them. They've made that very clear in their training scenarios and what they're training for and the way that they're training. So we don't know when something like this is going to happen. We don't know if this is something they're planning for to crack down, impose martial law, if there's some kind of a natural disaster or an economic disaster, or if this is something that they're going to generate. We don't know when that's going to happen, so we can't predict it. We can just see that this is a going trend of the militarization of the police. We don't need to over-push this in the sense saying that we know that this is definitely going to happen. We can never know when it's going to happen. But we do know that that is the trend, and we need to make sure that this doesn't get overplayed to the extent that the people who support a militarized police state in America dismiss this as all paranoia. It is not paranoia. This is part of an advancing trend. It's one more aspect of it, and we need to always be alert as to what's going on with it. Let's go to a Canadian guy in Canada. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure, go ahead.
I think you do a great job there, David. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
In the mainstream news up here, the Canadian Wheat Board is apparently being sold to Saudi Arabia, which owns a Q3, Global 3 company, I think it's called.
Okay, yeah, they're pretty much calling in all the chips, aren't they? We're seeing, just as out in Arizona, we got John McCain selling a massive chunk of land out there to a foreign corporation. It's going to basically leave a crater large enough you can see it from space. We also know that the TransCanada Corporation is now able to condemn property under eminent domain. This is a foreign multinational corporation. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of that sort of thing as we see these trade agreements go through. So you're saying there that it's the Saudis are buying what kind of a cooperative is this? Or
it's a controlling wheat board.
A controlling wheat board. Okay.
Yeah. That's been on our mainstream. Also, it's been reported on our mainstream up here that the United Nations are meeting, all their departments are meeting, and they're trying to decide whether or not to go ahead with the war robots.
Well, there's not any decision to be made about that. I think they pretty much have already decided to use killer robots, and that's one of the things we've talked to people who are trying to stop that. We had Noel Sharkey on the show. We interviewed him. Killer robots are something we should all be concerned about, even if they're not autonomous. But, of course, they're also working on making them autonomous, where they would make their own decisions. Essentially, that would be like releasing a plague. They would just go around indiscriminately killing people, and they could always blame it on a software issue. But when you look at artificial intelligence, when you look at the rise of the robots, as I've said before, the thing that concerns me the most is that this concentrates power. And that's what we're seeing with everything, whether it's the trade agreements, whether it's the war on cash. It's always a concentration of power amongst the very few. And this kind of militarized robots allows even fewer people to be able to control a vast amount of force. There's an article that went up on Infowars.com just a few minutes ago. Saudi prince promises Bentleys to pilots as the civilian death toll mounts in Yemen. We just had a caller call us talking about relatives saying that just how desperate the situation is in Yemen. And of course, it's our allies, the Saudis, who have now attacked Yemen. That is not destabilization, though, because that's our ally. Let's play a clip from Noam Chomsky, and he responded to the idea that is being floated in America. He says, the idea of a media which does not repeat U.S. propaganda, he says, is intolerable to American leaders. Now, of course, this was a conference that was called the Confronting Russia's Weaponization of Information. Listen to his comments at that conference, about that conference.
It's also because there are other domains in which Russia and the United States don't see eye to eye. Just as there's a why is there a U.S.-Iranian crisis? I mean, in the United States, I'm sure you've seen every leading commentator, every presidential candidate, and so on. Recently, Jeb Bush say Iran is the greatest threat to world peace. And that's repeated over and over. Now, there's also another opinion on the matter, namely the world's opinion. And we know what that is because there are polls taken by the leading U.S. polling agencies. The Gallup organization has international polls. And they ask the question, which country is the greatest threat to world peace? The United States is way ahead of anyone else. No other country is even close. But Americans are protected from that. The U.S. media simply refused to print it. So this major poll, I think it was December 2013, and it was reported by BBC, but not a single word in the major American media. So if the world thinks that, so much for the world, we say Iran is the greatest threat to world peace, therefore that's true. We can repeat it over and over.
Yes, absolutely. It's controlling the media and controlling the information you see. There's a new story out today. Of course, we keep seeing information come out of WikiLeaks' exposure of the Sony emails. Now, this particular one is about a coordinated reaction within Hollywood to leaks about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Of course, the trade agreements that are being worked on. And at the heart of these trade agreements, of course, is the copyright issue. And it's been the Hollywood studios, the people who are also, like Sony, involved in the music industry. It is not simply about free trade. This is trade for the globalist corporations, as I point out, and this is a way of them holding a gun to your head and forcing you to buy their products. It's a way for them to maintain ownership forever of everything. And that's what this partnership is about. One of the other things that Noam Chomsky said, he said, there's little moral difference between chattel slavery and renting one's self to an owner and wage slavery. He says workers should own and control their workplace. Well, how about farmers being able to own and control their tractors? We talked about that in the first hour. How about you being able to own, control, and repair your car? No, see, these people who are putting together this trade agreement don't want that. And of course, we've seen now in some of these leaked emails about Sony working with the MPAA. Guess who's the head of the MPAA? Chris Dodd, the guy who is protecting the bankers and getting their bailouts for them. The guy who, with Barney Frank, put together the Dodd-Frank bill that was supposedly going to keep those kind of abuses happening again. They both took their golden parachutes as soon as they did that for the bankers. It's not a reform act. What it does is it created another agency that is metastasizing with its control over the American people. But now Chris Dodd has gone to the MPAA. That's the organization that gives us the ratings for the movies, but it's also the Motion Picture Association. It's a trade organization. And so these emails, now the latest thing that this reveals is that Sony was working together with Disney and with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to push back against the exposure of part of the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement, this thing that is being negotiated in secret. We also see from some other leaks that have come out that Sony was working with the president on SOPA, because we know that SOPA, CISPA, ACTA, PIPA, all these things that have been defeated repeatedly at the legislative level are now going to be put into the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement as well as the Transatlantic one. Here's an email.